Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's brand new stuff from F5, the song called The Reckoning. As I said, the band is called F5, and on the phone right now, I don't know, what would I call you, the mastermind of F5, Dave?
Sure, that works, yeah. There's actually 5 masterminds in the band, quite honestly. That's I think, probably something that's a little bit different this time around for me is it's a group where everybody writes, everybody contributes, everybody comes up with everything. But I guess, look, maybe call me the quarterback, maybe a quarterback that plays. How about that?
There it is. It's the quarterback, David Ellefson, who all of you should know by now, I would think. Well, David, obviously, man, F5, you made some decent strides with the first record. You got the word out there, and what I think probably would be most important, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what you did with F5 is you set this band up as a band that is not Megadeth. Is safe assumption there?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I never used that band as a stepping stone to a solo project. I was just never one of those guys. I was in that band. I was happy being in it. We did what we did, and that was that. And then one day it ended. And, to be honest with you, I had no intention of putting together another band because I just know how much work they are. I know how much the odds are against you. And I'm not opposed to the work. I'm certainly not allergic to the work because the work, quite honestly, is half the fun. But there's just a lot that goes into it. And out of the blue, the F5 guys, I'd met them in 2002 and early 2003. Out of nowhere, their bands all kind of fell apart. And so me and the guitar player Steve and the drummer at that time, Dave, we got in a room, we started playing, and it was just like magic was there, And that reminded me how much I love being in a band, and it reminded me about how, in my opinion, the good bands, the best bands, they come together because it's just really born out of the love of the music, and guys play good together, and it just works, and that's what happened with F5. So the second thing, which I think you're right about, is I didn't want to dictate to them that, well, because this is what I did in the past, this is what this needs to be moving forward. Because I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity to just let life reinvent me, so to speak.
Sure.
And then it gave these guys an opportunity to probably go do some things that they hadn't been able to do before.
Well, the one thing, Dave, that I want to give you probably the most props about is the fact that a lot of guys go out after they've been in a big project and they do something other than that project, and it'll be a different style of a thing. But a lot of guys would not be as willing as you are to completely not live on your laurels of the past. And what I mean by that is not necessarily musically, but I mean you're out there doing it the old-fashioned way, playing tiny clubs, getting the word out about F5. You're not thinking that you guys should just jump into 5,000 to 10,000 seat rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's it requires I think if I rode the wave up from the beginning all the way up to the crest and even partway down the backside, in my former group, you know what I mean? Because music trends, they come and go. You've got heydays, you've got days where it's not so easy and the numbers are smaller and all the rest of that stuff. And I think, through it all, you got to do it because you really just love the music and you love the fans and you like being out there doing it. And I've done a lot of different records here, in my post-career, and it's every one of them for me is born out of. I kind of came up with these two questions: I either better really like the music, or I better really like the people, and hopefully it'll be both.
Sure.
Because they call it playing music for a reason. It's not working music, so it's not a job. It's not work, and so why put up with bad stuff and funky people and just horrible situations? Why deal with that? So. For me, it's I've done a lot of different things, and I think quite honestly, being able to go do some other things. I think when you put a band together, to some degree, your first record is sort of what frames what the group is.
Sure.
And then, moving forward after that, people come to expect a certain something from you. And then it's really hard to ever deviate much off of that because the fans don't like it. And I think, you kind of have set an identity for yourself, and that's just the way it is. And I think with this F5 record, the first one was an opportunity to, step up to the plate and take a whack. And, we got a couple of good bass hits on it, and now this next record is about, let's take that out even farther. Let's not just go remake the same record again. Let's do that. And I think, in my opinion, and it's me inside the band, is that I think we grew a lot. And we, taking it out on the road and touring, like you said, that's where a band really starts to grow, and you really start to grow up, and you really become a band. Because just sitting around writing some tunes and going in the studio is, that's just really one small part of what being a band is all about.
Well, the thing that I've noticed too with The Reckoning, the new record versus Drug for All Seasons, is that it seems like where you guys developed the most is in the songwriting. I mean, where the first record was a lot of 2.5 to 3 minute songs, just fast and furious, almost like a punkish, like Seven Dust meets Punk type attitude. This one here has a lot more developed songwriting. Did you guys purposely do that, or is that just the maturation of the band?
No, I think you're right, and I would agree with you. And I think it was born out of a couple of things. I like Ryan Green, the producer. He did a lot of these kind of power punk records when he was working with Fat Mike from NoFX and a lot of the things he was doing up in the Bay Area. Records he was working on. And I remember when I picked him up at the airport when we were getting ready to do a Drug for All Seasons, I said, man, bring some of that element into F5 because there's some really good songs here, but I'd like to just, on a couple of them, I want to hear more energy. And so he embraced that. He said, okay, I'll bring it. And that's what he did on a few of those tunes. Some things like Defacing and, maybe Dying on the Vine and some of that kind of stuff. And then I think on this record, once we went out on the road, you play your songs in front of people, you see what works, you see some things you're like, God, I wish we had some more of that kind of song. Or, sometimes it inspires you to just even create brand new stuff. And I think that's what happened because when we were on the bus, on the road, Steve, our guitar player, Steve and John, really started hunkering down and writing a lot of very guitar riff-oriented metal tracks. And I think the one thing that we unanimously agreed on as a band is, look, it's all cool to have a, nice, tidy little 3-minute tune, but certainly where I came from, my past stuff with songs like Holy Wars, which were almost 7 minutes long,
right?
Kind of the charm of what I did in the past was that we had these like musical opuses almost, and that was a big part of. I think that really started to shift a lot, by the late 80s, the records like when Metallica did One and we did Rust in Peace, or Justice for All rather, and we did Rust in Peace and, Anthrax even started doing it. And I think what we really started to do as a movement is we really stretched ourselves out and as a musician and as a writer, it was cool. So I think on this record for F5, on The Reckoning, was kind of the mentality that we had is let's not just limit ourselves to just writing short little songs. Let's really break those barriers down. So, and as, I think for all the musicians involved, it was cool. And in my opinion, with Jimmy DeGrasso coming in, I think The Reckoning's in my opinion, one of the best records I've ever heard him do.
And that was an issue I wanted to bring up too, is you obviously brought in a familiar face in Jimmy DeGrasso, and Lord knows, if the one thing I'm always curious about is how do you keep this guy focused on one band? I can't think of a time this guy ever hasn't been in more than 2 bands.
Well, it's funny with Jimmy. Jimmy's a great guy. He's a phenomenal drummer.
Right.
Skill level far beyond what most rock gigs required, certainly. And I think with Jimmy, it's one of the things I said to him when I called him up. I said, do you want to play in the new F5 record? And he goes, of course. In fact, he goes, of course. I told you you should have had me play in the first one.
Right.
And he said that because, in 2002, when our whole former situation ended there, he and I, we talked about trying to continue moving forward, doing some stuff, and it just didn't happen. And it's interesting. I was thinking about it this year that it's funny that it took almost 5 years, and the F5 thing came together kind of right here in my backyard, and that became the door open for me and Jimmy to go work on some new creative stuff together. But one of the things I said to Jimmy is, I said, look, Jimmy, you're always going to get highline gigs with big established artists, and but
Sure.
and obviously they're played a lot of people. You can make good money. It's all good on all levels. But I said the one thing about those is you're usually always playing someone else's parts or someone else's songs. And I said that's the fun thing about something like F5 is this becomes this new, creative little umbrella here that you and I can go in and we can create something brand new from the ground up again. And I think, for all musicians who like to also be artists, that's an important thing to have. It's important. And that, I think, for me, probably overall with F5 has really been what's been such a passion for me and that's why I work so hard at it. And I don't mind playing small places, and I don't mind all the effort that I put into it almost on a daily basis, to be honest with you, is that for me, it's about just having a nice creative flow, and being able to go back and really just be artistically inspired again.
Well, another thing with, especially with The Reckoning, but since he joined F5 is, you've really found a way to tap into, Dale Steele and really bring out a different energy than he did. The only thing I had heard him do previously was the, 6-speed stuff. And
right.
I mean, it's a completely different energy that you're getting out of him with F5.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I thought the same thing, because after we go in and we line the tunes out and we get our scratch tracks, or we cut the drums, and then I usually get out of there for a while. I let the guitar players do their thing. I come in, I play bass, and then I usually get out of there again and I let Dale sing, and which is why I like to have someone like Ryan produce rather than me being in there driving everybody crazy. Me nitpicking on stuff, and because it just gives everybody a chance to really breathe and be their own person. And I tell you, when I heard the tracks that Dale was laying down, I was like, holy smokes, man, this is you're like a whole different singer on this record. And I would agree. I mean, it floored me as much as it probably piqued your interest when you heard it. It was like, wow, where did this guy come from? and to me, it's funny because there's if you got a great drummer and a great singer, you're in business, because a lot of the other stuff you can kind of fill in around it, And I think with F5 now, Dale's always been a phenomenal singer, and Jimmy, of course, a great drummer with just a great energy, especially on this record. So I think we really, we kind of got the engine and the caboose now that are really just rocking, and everything in between just sort of fell into place.
Now I'm interested to figure out how, David, you find time to do F5 between all the other stuff you're doing. I mean, every time I turn around, hey, here's a Temple of Brutality record, or look, David Ellefson's on a Soulfly record, or David Ellefson is now your official PV rep. I mean, when do you find time to actually be in a band?
Well, the thing about all these things is I think when people call you, they call you because they're hoping you're going to say yes.
Okay.
They don't call you going, well, I hope the guy says no. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And I learned that because I had to turn a few things down, and once in a while I still do if there's just not enough time, and once in a while musically something just doesn't feel right, or it just doesn't seem like it makes sense for me to go do it, so I'll opt out. But generally I try to take advantage of all this stuff because, as a bass player and as a musician and as a guy who, in my opinion, any day I got a bass or a guitar in my hand is a good day, and so I try to move forward on all this stuff, and some of them require, a few months of time. Sometimes there's a couple of weeks of time they require, and then you're kind of free for a while. So if the phone rings in the interim, and it's like, sure, why not? Let's go do it. So all of a sudden, what I like to have happen, or what's kind of been happening, is that I'll have played on 3 or 4 things, and they kind of just sit out there for a while until they're ready to release, and the next thing you know, they all kind of start firing off the runway, And,
sure.
So the appearances in, I'm like in 8 bands at the same time, but some of them I may have recorded like a year ago, before they finally released.
Okay. Well, let me address a couple of rumors that I've heard about David Ellefson, and you tell me true or not true, okay?
Sure.
At one point, you considered joining Soulfly.
Yes, true.
Okay. At one point, you were considered to be basically the Robert Trujillo in Metallica.
That I don't know. I'd say that's not true.
Okay, because that one...
Actually, you'd have to ask the other side, but let's put it this way. I did not get the call, so I'd have to say no. That is not true.
Okay. Rumor has it that one of your good friends is Eric Braverman.
True. Or should I say, sad but true. And I say that because of his past Metallica association, so
sure.
I mean that all in jest.
Sure. Well, we're good friends over here with Eric, man. Boy, that guy's a character and a half, huh?
Eric's awesome, man. You know, it's funny. I was just out at an Iron Maiden show, and there he is. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. And next thing you know, I'm on a video interview with him and Steve's daughter, Lauren Harris, and there's a switchblade, and it's Eric, and it's all things nutty. Yeah, Eric's awesome. I've known him since the Flotsam and Jetsam days many years ago.
Very nice. When you see that guy coming, you just gotta wonder what is up with those sideburns. Wow.
He's my favorite ADD guy that I know.
I hear you, man. Well, dude, obviously, man, the new record is called The Reckoning. It is F5. When's it out? It's not out for like another month or so, right?
Yeah, it comes out August 19th. Yep.
Okay, very cool. Well, David, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track. You could pick something from F5 or Soulfly or UFO or whatever you want, but maybe tell us a quick story about it.
Well, you know what, Ben? If you're going to do that, let's do something from let's tell you what, let's do Soulfly Prophecy, since that was really one of the first tracks that I recorded with Soulfly. Gosh, almost 4 years ago now, and it was really, I think, kind of the reinvention of Soulfly when Max was doing a big lineup change, and Max is awesome because I'd go in the studio and I'd say, well, should I play this? Should I play that? And he goes, hey, whatever you want, man. I mean, it was like one of the easiest records I've ever recorded in my life. Pretty casual for a metal gig, so here it is, Soulfly Prophecy.
All right, let's check it out. It is the Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the Best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.